Good morning. Before I go into my planned speech, I want to thank Bruce for playing what he did for the offertory. That was so perfect. At first, I thought he was just teasing me with a song that I've sung or he wants me to sing like he sometimes will do, but actually, that one was very perfectly chosen for this theme because its lyrics talk about how a thunderstorm comes, and while a lot of people might think, oh no, I'm caught in the rain, this is uncomfortable and wet and yucky, and I want to get out and go home, it actually traps these two people together, and so they are able to spend more time and make a connection that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So it's about making lemonade out of lemons, so to speak, which is kind of what I'm talking about today. Thank you, Bruce. Well chosen. Well, I'm honored to have been asked to share some of my story with you. If high school me had been told that someday I would create an entire Unitarian Universalist church service, sermon and all, I would never have believed it. After all, those people were godless heathens who thought they could believe anything they wanted, my parents would say, as we'd drive past the Ames UU Fellowship on the way to our Missouri Synod Lutheran Church on Sundays. They didn't say it every Sunday, but we went every Sunday to Sunday school and one or both services. And every Wednesday, because my dad directed a student music group he'd started in college, twice on Wednesdays, once we were old enough to be in confirmation class. So growing up, we practically lived at the church. In that way, the apple hasn't fallen far from the tree, I guess. It took a while for me to roll in a different direction. I dutifully memorized my Luther's Small Catechism, willingly got confirmed, volunteered with Vacation Bible School, and was even a church camp counselor. But there were things that started bothering me beyond just getting stuck as a shepherd in the nativity scene every single year. It's okay. Why weren't women allowed to be pastors? Or even to help serve communion? And did they really think my uncle probably didn't go to heaven unless he repented of his homosexuality before he died of AIDS? Supposedly there were Bible verses to back these things up. And what did it mean for me when at age 16 I fell hard for a girl and eventually realized that what I'd seen as fascinations with certain females, including some in my dad's church music group from about the age of 5, were really crushes. I'd always been interested in exploring new things. My favorite Sunday school classes were the ones where kids from some other church would come visit and tell us about their beliefs, or we'd take a field trip to another church and learn about that. There wasn't a whole lot of diversity, though. So when I hit college, I branched out and tried a bunch of different churches on my own, which still didn't have a lot of non-Christian diversity, but at least included Unity and UU. And I went to every international student club event I could, which sometimes revealed bits of religion. I tried attending an LGBT Bible study, which didn't really get off the ground, and the New Age Philosophies Club, which I found fascinating. With a friend there for moral support, I tried a public spring equinox ritual at the UU and found it very moving and not at all scary. But soon, I ended up spending my Sunday mornings working in event services and just doing solitary study in my free time. Music school in Creston was very intensive, so I took a break from church during that time. There weren't many options there anyway. And when I moved back to Ames, for a few years, I sang for modest pay in an Episcopal choir, which I liked because it was more ritualistic and more open-minded than what I'd been raised with. But I liked the more open-mindedness, variety, and academicness, yeah, that's a word, of the UU. So that was where I went during the summer when I could drag myself out of bed for it. Eventually, I moved to West Des Moines, and there was no question that this was where I wanted to attend church. I didn't even explore anywhere else, which is unusual for me with my craving for variety. I dove in head first and haven't looked back, as they say. But if I do look back, I can see that I still carry aspects of my early spiritual life with me. Church is still incredibly important to me, and it's important for me to have my kids in faith formation classes. But I want them to explore for themselves what they each find meaningful and not just be told what we believe. I believe Jesus lived and was a great revolutionary who in many ways set a great example for people to follow. I believe that he was divine and that we all are, though some people, including him, in my opinion, exhibit divinity more clearly and potently than others. I've learned that there's a lot of overlap between different Christian and non-Christian religions, and I feel they're all trying to interpret the same things. I believe there's value to be found in all of them, but that ours is perfect and the only one that's right. Kidding. I believe that love is God and that music is a spiritual practice and language. I believe that focused energy has the capacity to manifest change, whether you call it prayer, magic, activism, optimism, or any other number of names. And probably with its roots in the Christian idea that everything happens according to God's will, I also believe that events unfold as they're meant to, and thus, on a grand scale, all is well with the universe, even when it sometimes seems like our personal world, or even our planet as a whole, is falling apart. Those last few are especially important to my entire worldview and shape everything I do. They're always there, like a quiet underground stream, but it's in times of distress that they really clearly surface. How many people, even if they don't really believe in any kind of deity, when faced with a real hardship, will still pray, please let me get this job, or ask others who are religious to pray for the recovery of their loved one who's in the hospital? Even asking someone else to pray reveals that we see some value in that action, that we have some belief in it, even if we don't believe we are capable of it. Similarly, while we may marvel at the beauty of nature or a well-played piece of music, they may not make us ponder the meaning of life the way a crisis can. But when our world is turned upside down and all we can do is fall to our knees wailing, "Why?" Suddenly, many of us start seeking answers to spiritual questions we're usually content to ignore, such as, why do bad things happen to good people? Is there something I should have done better? Or what do I believe happens when people die? This is natural and a healthier reaction than denial. We've been shocked into realizing how important something is. Sometimes it may take something drastic to wake us up to a change we need to make, or to appreciation of the life or people around us. This is where we need to have the grit of a hummingbird, working their tail off to stay where they need to be at that moment, to hover with the big questions, to work through the grief, to do what you have to do, both with the struggle of the moment and with the responsibilities that unfortunately rarely go away during a time of crisis, like taking care of the kids or convincing yourself to eat even though nothing sounds good. Giving yourself the grace to be a mess once the kids are in bed, or to go to work, the grit part, and then come home and sit in the driveway and cry for a little bit before you go in the house. Finding the balance to give yourself the time that you need to be able to do the next hovering, to be able to do the next work. You can't just be in crisis all the time. But if you don't let yourself go through the crisis, it won't really end. And I think that's what Rumi is talking about, partially. We have to go through those things. We have to let them in. He kind of takes it to extremes. But things like going through my divorce, and then subsequently being disowned by another friend who meant the most to me. It was excruciating. It shattered my world. It was like the crowd of sorrows violently throwing all the furniture out of my house. But as Rumi said, it may clear the way for something new. Sometimes in hindsight, we may see something that we didn't realize before. What was painful in the moment, and may still be, might serve a higher purpose. If my life hadn't been cleared out in that way, there wouldn't have been room for me to make a later connection with someone else who really needed the kind of unconditional love and pouring out of everything I had in ways I hadn't even imagined. Having gone through those things and then having it all cleared out of my life in that way was like an extreme training program to be ready for the next thing that came my way. Which, while it was hard, and still is, was in so many ways a blessing. There are many blessings in disguise if we just think about it after the fact. Sometimes, if we're really good, we might be able to convince ourselves in the midst of something that surely there is a higher reason it's happening. Maybe there is someone who needs us. Maybe it creates space for something else to be possible. I'm by no means saying that horrific things like violence, slavery, interpersonal trauma, or other atrocities are okay. Rather, that there's always some glimmer of light in the darkness, some lesson to be learned, something positive to hold on to or reach for. Like early UU Norbert Chapek holding a simple flower communion with fellow prisoners at Dachau concentration camp. He may not have made it out alive, but some people did. And maybe it was that radical act of hope in a place whose gates literally commanded entrants to abandon hope that may have bolstered the spirits of a few people just enough that they somehow managed to live to tell about it. To me, that's a kind of resurrection story. May we have the courage, the perseverance, the hope to do radical acts of hope, to look at things from another perspective, to find a balance between the hard things and letting ourselves give ourselves a pass, or sit and cry, or not take on one more thing today. May we be like the hummingbird, hovering and hibernating, as only we can know what we need. Blessed be.